question is that the motion be agreed to, and call the member for Liverpool.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm delighted to be able to participate in this debate to once again declare how enormously supportive I am of community legal centres and in the terribly important work that they do. I've had a very long connection with community legal centres. A very long time ago, I was a student volunteer at the Redfern Legal Centre when I was a law student last century. Likewise, I was at some of the early meetings that led to the establishment of the Marrickville Legal Centre. I recall meetings at Marrickville Town Hall with people like Darryl Mellum and Phil Bolton. And in the interest of full disclosure, I should say that my daughter currently works for one. There are two things about CLCs that it seems to me are very obvious and very important. One is that they do their terribly important work consistently on the smell of an oily rag. There will be no part of the legal system that delivers such valuable services for so little money. It takes a particular commitment to work in that sector, and the work that is done is terribly important. The second significant thing to me is that they often deal with the most marginalised, the most dispossessed in our communities. They are the people at the coalface dealing with some of the most intractable social problems that we have. The advantage of that, of course, is that they're an invaluable source of advice. You can't seriously attempt to be Shadow Attorney General in this state without paying a lot of attention to the advice that you get from the individual CLCs and also from the peak body, whose CEO is Tim Leach. Their advice, their recommendations seem to me almost always correct. The most recent, well, one of the more recent events was, of course, the changes to the Victim Support Scheme in 2020, which I thought were fundamentally misconceived and relied heavily upon the CLC's advice to me about that. The other thing that I think flows from some of that is that in practical terms, they're often able to deal holistically with individual clients in a way that traditional lawyers can't. And that gives you solutions you don't normally necessarily get. And they're often, in that sense, able to help someone through a legal process and in fact make the formal legal process and court proceedings a whole lot easier and more successful. Can I particularly mention two legal centres, the ones that I guess am physically closest to, the South West Sydney Legal Centre, which fortuitously is located just upstairs from my office, and it does an immense amount of work over a whole range of projects. I've particularly been impressed in the work they've done in relation to domestic violence and dealing with victims and survivors. Their work in that area has been particularly important. The other, of course, is Macarthur Legal Centre. I had the pleasure of going to their 30th anniversary a couple of years ago. It was a significantly important event that had attracted the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Tom Bathurst, and the Supreme Court Appeal Justice, His Honour Anthony Payne. Anthony Payne, interestingly, had in his previous life had something to do with the establishment of Macarthur Legal Centre. Macarthur Legal Centre also does a great deal of important work relating to survivors of domestic violence. I've had more than the odd dealing with them over the years about that, and they do terribly important and terribly useful work. CLC survive on the smell of an oily rag. If there is one group in our society that merits more funding, and I know it's harder, it's more complex than just saying that, but if there's one group that merits more funding, it's community legal centres.
I thank the member for Liverpool. The question